Hello everyone, welcome to RockShire Gaming. My name is Eric. With the end of 2023 soon upon us, as I film this video, I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to do a series of videos over the top 40 games in my collection. There's going to be a couple caveats to that, but I decided on the number 40 just because I didn't want to drag this out too long, and I also thought if 40 is good enough for Casey Kasem, then it's good enough for us here on RockShire Gaming. So, with that said, a couple caveats to this list. Again, this is the top 40 games in my collection. So, these are games that I currently own and have possession of. There's a couple games I would like to have thrown on here, but I have already covered those in my top 5 memorable games, and so I didn't necessarily think that I needed to put them in this list, especially because I don't have those games any longer. With that said, the other caveat to that is the played part. The games that are on this list are all games that I have played a few times comfortably enough to put them in the order that I have put them in. There's going to be a bunch of games that frankly, I am not going to put it in this list that are up on the wall behind me and other places throughout the house that, unfortunately, due to various life things like work and family life and whatnot, have not gotten to play a lot of the games that are on the wall. So, with that said, I can't really give them a fair shake as to where they would go on this list because I haven't actually played them. I'm sure most of them are excellent games. But yeah, I definitely want to give them their fair shake. So this list, again, is going to be excluding those games. Not saying they may not make a list next year when we do this, and possibly even expanding it past 40, or just leaving it at 40 and kind of taking some games that are on here off. That's neither here nor there. But that is going to be another rule for this video series. Also, we're not necessarily talking about expansions. During the course of talking about a game, we might talk about how the game is enhanced or improved or not by expansions that are out, but we're not going to be covering specific expansions. That may be its own video later on where we talk about specific top 10 expansions that enhance the gameplay or essential expansions for certain games, but that's not going to be the focus of this video. Also, on the expansion front, there are some games that I don't actually own the expansions for. I may only own the base game from, so that's where I will be coming from as far as my perspective on the game. There may be other decisions or other rankings I would give to certain games if I threw the expansion content in there, but for this list, I will say in a game whether or not I own the expansions or not when I talk about that aspect of the game. And lastly, multiple versions of games. There are some games that will be on this list that I own various versions of the game, meaning that they had a different theme or whatnot, where on the outside looks like a different game, but at its core is still essentially the core game itself. So in some of those cases, or most of those cases, I think there's like maybe 1 or 2 exceptions to that, but in most of those cases, we will be talking about the game series as a whole, especially if I own multiple versions of the game. And really lastly on this whole thing, these rankings, wherever they fall, if they fall toward the bottom 40 or to the top 40, doesn't mean I think they're a bad game. If I thought they were a bad game, they would not be on my collection. It's more for me the enjoyment level I get out of them compared to maybe some other games. And also going through this list, and I understand why other board game YouTubers have a hard time making some of these lists, is because it's almost like in some cases you're having to choose your favorite child. So there are games on here that if I took another couple days to a week or 2 or more to look at the list, I might put them in a different order. So, and even while I'm doing this, I've got my basic core 40. I might even change the order before I do the next video. Who knows? So if your favorite game is on the list and it is not ranked as high up as you would like, just know that I'm not necessarily saying that the game is bad. In majority, if not all cases, I enjoy the game myself. I just have it lower on the list because, you know, when you're talking about 40 different games, some things are going to be low on the list, some things are going to be high on the list, even if it's like by a hair. And with that said, I do invite you guys to comment below with your favorite games that you would put in this case, in this video, in your top 31 to 40. If you have any comments or you think I'm wrong about my placement of some of these games, let me know down below in the comments. While you're down there, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when the rest of this series, as well as any other videos that we do, will be coming out. So like I said, my hope is to get the first 1 or 2 of these videos put out before Christmas, but then put the rest of them out during the week between Christmas and New Year's 2023. So with all that said, let's go ahead and start the RockShire top 40 games in my collection by talking about this one. First, Catan. Catan is one of those games that I have played multiple times, but never my copy. This is my personal copy of the game. It is out of its shrink wrap. However, I think if you open it, it's actually all the punch boards are still together. Again, that's not a sign that I don't care for the game. It's just when I bought the game, I haven't played with anybody since buying my own copy of the game. Target does various sales on this, usually during Christmas time, so that's when I picked it up. And if you do look behind me, I think I have it covered up right now by another game, but trying to hide which games I took off the wall. I do own various expansions to that, so I'm not opposed to playing the game. I do like the fact that the board changes up every time. The mechanics of the game of creating your roads, building up your different settlements and everything like that. It is a lot of fun. It is a lot of strategy, and there's a lot of interaction between the other players because you can get blocked by other players and whatnot while you're trying to build your stuff. Some of the, for lack of a better term, cons I have of the game are going to be a lot of dependence on dice rolls with getting resources, as well as at some point when you do start trading, at least with the groups I have played with, and again, some of these opinions on some of these games can be because of players that you do play the games with, so please keep that in mind before you roast me on the comments. But with a lot of the players that I have played with, the trading, especially late game, almost to me turns the game into Monopoly a little bit. But those are like my 2 main gripes on the game. Overall though, I do get enjoyment with playing this game with multiple people. Another thing that does get this game not to the table as much, especially at my house, is that a lot of times I do try to find games that my wife and I can play together, and the player count on this game, because of the trading aspect and other things, is 3 to 4 players, unless you do have the 5 to 6 player expansion. But again, minimum player count is going to be 3, so it gets so it makes it hard to table this game when it is just my wife and I in the house. Usually we need to have at least one other person come over to play, and sometimes again with adult schedules you do have that problem there. So overall, like I said, I do enjoy the game. I have had fun anytime that it has hit the table, though not necessarily my first choice to put out. Still do enjoy the game. So that is number 40 is Catan. So for number 39 is a game that actually I believe is on my wife's top 10 list, and that is going to be Sheriff of Nottingham as things move around in the box. This is a bluffing game where you're basically trying to get contraband into Nottingham and Sherwood Forest and all that stuff. Each person does take a turn as the sheriff, and basically the other 2 or 3 or so players in the game are trying to basically bluff the sheriff, or whoever's the sheriff that turn, in order to get their goods into town. So one of the things I do like about this game is that you do choose a different person each turn to be the sheriff, so that way you're not always having to bluff, you know, Paul. You've got 3 other people that you may be having to bluff to get your contraband into town. So there is that aspect of it. But again, one of the other problems I do have with it is because of the nature of the game, and I completely understand, is that it is a 3-player game, so we don't get it tabled here enough at the house. But again, part of the fun of this one is just the different ways that it forces you to interact with the other players at the table. You're not just kind of like playing your own game in front of you essentially, and then kind of adding up scores at the end. You are having to interact with, talk with the other players at the table. So it does have a semi-party, at least for me, a semi-party game feel to it, and it usually is a lot of fun when we do get it to the table. So again, number 39 pick is going to be Sheriff of Nottingham. And yes, I am aware that there is a second edition version of this. I believe that Simon is the one that put it out, but yeah, I do prefer my first edition game, not because of rules or anything like that, but just because, you know, I didn't want to buy another version of the game. So number 38 pick is a game that we have unboxed and played on the channel. My wife and I have played this quite a few times, and that is going to be Wingspan. This is a game for up to 5 players. It has a solo mode, so you can play this on your own with different solo modes or solo rules. We have played it a few times, 2-player with my wife and I. I do like the game. I like the fact that the different bird cards and whatnot that you have in there, all the different abilities that they have, trying to get your play area set up the way you want it to get maximum points and scoring and all the different scoring conditions that there are in the game. One of my cons for the game is that at times I do feel like you're kind of doing your thing and there's not as much interaction, at least in the games we've played of just the core game. There's not as much interaction with the other players as I would kind of like more in my games. If you watch the channel, we do a lot of cooperative games on the channel, or we do a lot of games where there's a large amount of interaction between players in the game. So games that usually don't have too much player interaction, where you're kind of both just, you know, doing your own thing until you get to the end of the game to figure out who got more points in the game, is not a big seller in the house. But again, the games that we have played of Wingspan have been enjoyable. Now again, I haven't looked too much into what the actual other expansions to the game bring to the table, so if there is a little bit more player interaction that the other, was it 3 expansions to the game put in, let me know in the comments below. But again, I do enjoy the game itself, so I do just wish there was a little bit more player interaction between the different players in the game. So on to 37 is a game that we play a lot in the house. My wife enjoys it way more sometimes than I do. Again, not that I am saying that this series of games is bad at all. I do enjoy it myself. I like figuring out the little puzzles with it, but that is going to be Flux from Looney Labs. This is the holiday version of the game. We also do own the Doctor Who version and the Wizard of Oz version. Ironically, we don't have the mainline version of the game, but this is another one of those games where there are a ton of different variations of the game that in some cases have you have your keeper cards, your, in some cases, creeper cards and other stuff. And a lot of the cards are themed to the setting that they are in. In the Doctor Who version of the game, you get a lot of the doctors and companions and the enemies related to Doctor Who. Action cards are things that you would possibly see on the show and whatnot. Holiday Flux. All the different cards that are in here are all things that you would see around the house at holidays or holiday parties and whatnot. Wizard of Oz, again, Wizard of Oz characters. There's Star Trek Flux. I think there's Drinking Flux. I want to say there's a Monty Python version of the game too. All that stuff. But again, the central core of the game is going to be with the rules manipulation. Again, if you haven't played the game, I do encourage you to pick this one up, definitely. But basically, you have a draw card, you have a play a card, but those rules, with how simple they are, can get thrown out the window very quickly, and you're like drawing 5, you're playing all of your cards, you're having to discard all your cards, do different things, sing songs in order to draw extra cards. So the game does have a lot of versatility between all of its different versions. It's a very enjoyable game for us here at the house. But yeah, that is my number 37. Now, for number 36 on the list, we are going to pick a game from AEG. It is a game that I have had in my collection for quite a while. Very rarely have I played my copy, just because I know people who have more of the content for the game, and we basically used theirs because they had more expansions and whatnot at the time. And it is also technically a game I am undefeated in at this time. Now, watch the first time we played on the channel, I will lose badly. But that game is going to be Smash Up. Smash Up is a game that we have owned for quite a while. Again, like I said, we've played other people's copies. But I do enjoy the game more than I know some other board game YouTubers do. I'm not going to say who they are, I just know their comments. But I do like the game in the fact that the different mechanics that are in the game, there are different decks that you can combine together that concentrate on those different aspects. And I love the concept of being able to combine two different decks, any two decks you want, to come up with different combinations of cards and whatnot to use. Now, with that said, I only have the first couple of expansions to the game. I know there's a ton more expansions, so I don't know how much more crazy the game has gotten since its initial few releases. So there is that. Let me know below in the comments with that what your favorite Smash Up combinations are, if you would like to do that. But I do know that there are some negatives to the game as well. For me, it is you got the two different kinds of scoring that I know have tripped people up before. One with the scoring of one trying to break the base, and then two trying to, in some cases, figure out the scoring for how much you actually get for breaking that base, depending on different factors and whatnot. So there is that aspect to it right there. But overall, the games that we have played, at least I have had a lot of fun with. Again, seeing as how I am currently undefeated in this game, the games that I have played, somehow, even the tutorial games that I have played when I was first learning how to play, I won those, beating people who own more of the content than I do. So there's that. I'm not trying to brag, but I mean, at least in the first couple of releases, I was pretty good. So that is going to be our number 36 game, Smash Up. Number 35 game on the list is going to be from Cryptozoic, and that is going to be Epic Spell Wars of the Battle Wizard. Specifically, this is which one? Duel at Mount Skull's Fire. We have played this one quite a few times. I only own one other version of this. I know that there are 5 at least total versions, 5 maybe 6 total versions of the base game. Again, all of them adding new things to the game, building off of the original game, not too far off from how the original game played. But I do like this game. I have had quite a lot of fun playing this with different friend groups and whatnot. The different combinations you can make when you're creating your spells, because in the game you're basically having 3 different, you're scoring however you're scoring and everything, but you have 3 different parts to the spell that you are trying to create, and some of those spells, especially even with like the naming of the spells and whatnot, can get quite chaotic, and it's usually pretty good time. A lot of the humor on here is pretty funny and whatnot. So, but yeah, so that is going to be our number 35 pick. Epic Spell Wars right there. Number 34 is going to be an explosive good time. This game you can find usually readily available at Target. Any group that I have played this with, just the tension of it, it can be a lot of fun, but we're going to go with Exploding Kittens. They have a few different flavors of this, as well as a few different expansions to the game. But the basic premise of the game is that you do have various cards that you are playing to try to mess with other opponents on the table, trying not to draw the Exploding Kitten card, playing the Diffuse card that you may or may not have in your hand, and trying to be the last one standing. Like I said, I have had a lot of fun with this. I have played with family, I have played with different friend groups, our game group, whatnot, and this is a pretty good game. You can usually get a few different playthroughs in it at in one night. You can use it as a filler between a couple of different big games, especially if someone's setting up one game and you just want to have something that you can pass a little bit of time with. But yes, that is going to be Exploding Kittens. I usually do recommend people to pick this one up as well. So yeah, very enjoyable game. That is going to be our number 34 game. So the next game on our list, number 33, is a game that I admittedly have not played in quite a while, but it is fun whenever we have gotten it to the table, and that is going to be Formula D. It is a racing game where you basically go around different famous tracks and race each other. It does have different wear limits with tires and other engine parts and whatnot. You do control your speed by shifting gears and using different size die in order to determine how far you go and during the lap. Different rules for, passing corners and whatnot. Weather condition rules that you can throw in there as well. So it is a game that can or cannot be as complex as you want with throwing in the different rules. Like I said, we have had a pretty good time in the different games that we have played. I can think of one time where a friend of ours wanted to try to get to the finish line as fast as he could, so he just put in high gear and took way too many turns, and I'm pretty sure his car blew up as he was crossing the finish line. So there is that. So again, there is a little bit of versatility in this as well, because they did at some point sell different boards that you could get to kind of change up how the races were, so you weren't on one track all the time. Again, I don't own any of the other boards for that, but that was something that you could get if it was something you wanted to do. We may go through, I know there's some newer racing games in the same vein that have been released in more recent years, but I would like to go ahead and feature this on the channel at some point. Let me know down below if it would be something you want to look into, but that is going to be number 33 on the list. Number 32 on the list is going to be a game similar to another tableau builder that we've already talked about, but for me, I kind of enjoyed the theme a little bit more, and it is very good for spooky season. So that is going to be Dreadful Meadows. This is a newer game in my collection that I have played a few times, not on the channel, but we did unbox it on the channel, and we've been able to play it a few times, just my wife and I, through 2-player games. Haven't looked at the like a 3 to 4 player game to see how that would run with getting the tiles and whatnot. But again, this game is pretty fun. It does somewhat fall into that tableau building trap where you're not necessarily interacting as much with the other players as I would like to, at least in the games that we have played. But again, it is a fun little game with trying to figure out the best way to build up your little candy farm, your Halloween candy farm, and try to earn the most points through the harvesters and other different things. So like I said, a very good game, very well designed. I like it a lot. Again, I'd like to again have a little bit more player interaction, which I do think is part of what the expansion does bring. The expansion is up here somewhere. I haven't actually been able to play with the expansion content. That's why I'm not really talking on that as much, even though I own it. Go figure. That may or may not shift this game's position on the list for next year, and if it does put in that interaction, then again, as I said, that might go into an essential expansion list for 2023, 2024, who knows. But Dreadful Meadows, great game, recommend it. That is going to be our number 32. And number 31, finishing off this first part of the series, is going to be a game that, though mechanically is a little simplified, the amount of joy this one has brought my family is, exceeds all that. So that is going to be Catapult Feud. So this is a game where essentially you are building up your own little castle and whatnot, and basically taking catapults and other weapons of various destructive ability and trying to knock down the other person's fortress while taking out their soldiers. There are quite a few expansions to this. Have not played through all of them. Have used the Hydra expansion 1 or 2 times, but my thing with this game is that we do play this one a lot more with the kids, and we do stick with the rules of the game itself. My wife and I are usually more or less trying to follow the rules of when to use the cards and all that sort of thing. But we usually let our 7 and 9-year-old handle all the firing with the catapults. They love it. I think it is the best thing ever. The dog doesn't too much care for the catapult balls flying all over the place, but the kids love it, and that is, in honesty, one of the reasons I said before that player interaction is a big part in how a lot of people perceive games, as I talked about when we talked about Catan and other games. But this one is kind of the opposite end of that. Again, we play this one with the kids a lot, and like I said, it's just chaos when you have 2 little kids, trying to fire catapults at each other. We just have a blast with it. We've gotten grandparents involved in it, basically playing teams, even when you're just using 1 catapult each. We've been doing like taking turns with teams and stuff like that. That is why this game has earned a high spot on the list right there. So number 31, Catapult Feud. And that is it for this half the list, the 31 through 40 portion of it. I'd like to thank you guys for sticking with it this long into the video. I hope you will take a look at the next one when we do 21 through 30. But yeah, this was a lot of fun kind of going through all these games. Some of these games I haven't played in quite a while, and kind of just trying to even with the ranking of it, trying to think, well, though mechanically I like this game here, there's other factors that go into it. And again, this is not a definitive list. Even during this video, I changed the, even though I knew the 10 that we were going to be using for this section, I did change the order of a couple of them as I got to thinking about it even during this video. So little behind the scenes there, but these 10 are cemented in stone now, so we'll leave them be. Let me know what you thought of this list. Let me know if you thought certain games should have been higher for whatever reason that you have. No opinion is wrong in that. It is all subjective as to which games we do or do not like. But like I said, I always love to hear from you guys down below in the comments. Make sure again that you like the video and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to see when the next parts of this video come out. That's all I have to say. This has been RockShire Gaming. I have been Eric, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.